Hey everyone, Duke Nougat 3D here with another item from my collection, and today I have for you my Russian Protivogaz Modernizirovannoy Konstrukcji 2, or Gas Mask Modernized Design 2, otherwise known as the PMK-2 Gas Mask Kit. Boy, that was a fucking mouthful. So, I'm going to be trying to be really quick with this video because I got a lot of shit here to show off for you guys, and I've already had to redo this video like 5 other times trying to get everything done in a timely fashion and screwing up. So anyways, without further ado, the PMK-2 kit was designed sometime in the early 1980s, I believe alongside the PMK-1, and was issued throughout that period, even until today, where masks such as the PMK-4, PMK-5, and PMK-S are trying to replace it, but failing to do so as of now. Obviously, the masks have not come to fruition in the replacement of the older PMK-1 through 3 masks. The PMK-2 is essentially the same as the PMK-1, other than the fact that it has the ability to swap out the filter on either side of the mask through a interesting and proprietary bayonet system that the Russians developed. Quite simpler than most US and NATO bayonet systems, and it seems a bit on the looser side, but I kind of prefer it over the fact that you can easily put a 40mm adapter on it, which I'll get to in a moment here. The mask itself is called the MB-180, whereas the PMK-1's facepiece is just the M80. Obviously, M is maska, but the B we assume means bayonet, or at least the Russian word for bayonet, but that has not been confirmed. The 1 we do not know for sure, but we do know 80 refers to 1980, meaning, as I've mentioned before, possibly the PMK-1 and PMK-2 were developed around the same time. When they were issued is unclear. So, anyhow, before I ramble on any further, let's start off with the carrier. Made of a very thin and kind of cheap, very loosely made cotton material. There is some plastic plates reinforcing the carrier, but it does not really have that much of an effect on the structural integrity of the design. These masks were also issued to Bulgaria, and the way to tell the Bulgarian ones apart is that the carrier will have 2 lifted dots instead of 1 lifted dot in the center, and 2 patches of Velcro, which is, in my case, this very beautiful aesthetic maroon color, although some will be the same color as the carrier, obviously. Moving on, we have the shoulder strap, which this is a later example manufactured PMK-2, and I noticed the later ones have these very broad, thick shoulder straps, although that may not have anything to do with the date and just with the manufacturer itself. I used to own a PMK-1 that had a much thinner shoulder strap than this, and also I should mention that the PMK gas mask carrier is one of the few Russian carriers that have a detachable shoulder strap, which is interesting. Carrying over from the PBF gas mask carrier design, which I do not know the designation of, someone will probably comment that, it does have a belt loop on the back, and it does have the typical Russian thin waist strap. There are no pockets externally except for these 2. I am not sure of their purpose. They could be for anti-fog inserts. They could be for anything really. They're just there. I kind of assume that they're used for storing possibly even the straps, similar to how the M17 carrier did it back in the day, but was eventually replaced, and that design feature dropped. Moving on to the inside, while I still have time here, you have markings on the inside, nothing referring to any date as far as I can tell. The inside, you have 2 large pockets which span the front edge of the carrier, and then a pocket here for a decontamination kit. I'm not sure which one would be issued around this time, possibly still IPP8s, but I'm unsure. Moving on, we have the filter for the mask, which is designated EO11501, and on top of it you can see the bayonet adapter. This is the deflector, which would go inside the mask to hold the filter or the 40mm GOST adapter onto the mask, which I kind of like that concept. It has a plug on the top here, and underneath this plug you can see there is an inlet valve, which is very interesting. This is one of the very few filters of the modern era to use an inlet valve on it. I'm kind of curious as to why they chose this design, other than the fact that obviously there is no other inlet valve without it, but it's just kind of interesting to see, I guess. And then plug on the bottom of the filter, nothing special to say. With that filter, you also have the winterization sock, which obviously prevents frost from accumulating on the filter and getting snow and mud and possible droplets of water inside the filter as well. These ones for the PMK's bayonet filters seem to be a bit different than the older designs. It is overall the same material. However, instead of a metal crimp inside the filter sock, there is a plastic skeleton, which I personally don't like the design of. I prefer the older metal crimp style winterization socks. But whatever, it's just a design. It's a feature. You have the face form for the mask, which is typically removed. I see a lot of photos. I think I've even seen photos of, like, within the Russian military of soldiers accidentally leaving the face forms inside the mask for whatever reason. But, you know, gotta be removed. You have the anti-fog inserts. These are the type that are coated on both sides. Not going to open them. Just going to leave them how they are. You have the anti-fogging lens outserts. These are not ballistic. They're made out of the same cheap glass as the lenses of the mask itself, so these will shatter when hit with something. Next up, we have the factory bag that the mask comes in, and I assume this is kept to double as the waterproofing bag for the mask. I'm not entirely sure, but I can definitely see that being used for that purpose. Here we have the 40mm GOST adapter, just a inlet valve that would go on the side of the mask to use with standard 40mm GOST Russian canisters, and I prefer this over the bayonet filters. And interestingly, there is also a 40mm to bayonet adapter where you can just go full retard and have this on there, and then have an adapter to use a bayonet filter on it, and it just sticks out like even about this far with the adapter. It looks basically like this, so it's pretty weird, and I'm kind of disappointed that my set didn't come with it. These things are a complete mystery to me. I don't know what they are. I kind of assume that they're ties for the waterproofing / factory bag, but I find that kind of unlikely, but also at the same time possible. If anyone knows what these damn things are, please tell me. They're just two rubber strings, I guess you could call them, noodles, something. I don't know what they are, but they're within the kit, so gotta mention them. Here we have the nameplate for the carrier. You would put the soldier's name and issue number and all that information inside here. This would be sewn on the front leading edge of the carrier, just below the shoulder strap attachment point, I believe. And that's pretty much what that's for. A lot of people know what those are for. Here's the spare drinking tube, and I'm going to go on a mini rant and just say how ungodly terrible the PMK drinking tubes are. They are the structural integrity of a stale Twizzler stick. That's how much these things suck. I used to own a PMK-1, as I've mentioned before, and when I installed the spare drinking tube and left it in the carrier for about an hour and walked around with it and stuff inside the carrier, it completely tore through the tube. These things are shit. Just get rid of them. Oh, don't get rid of them. Keep them with the kit for, you know, historical quote-unquote reasonings. But what I go and do is I took a piece of Israeli drinking tube and slapped it on here, and it'll probably outlive the mask, honestly. This is just rock solid. Speaking of which, let's move on to the mask here. As you can see, made out of a black natural rubber, which a lot of people complain more about than the tubes itself, interestingly enough. We'll get to that in a moment. This is one of my favorite Russian masks. I'm surprised I haven't made a review of this sooner, maybe just because it takes so goddamn long to set this thing up and try and get this thing reviewed, but I digress. Here's another accessory, the blanking plug on the side of the mask. And this is an accessory which I believe could have had more potential, because there is a prototype in the PMK series known as the Nezabudka, whose drinking system was integrated into the blanking plug. It was basically a port which you flip up a cap and you plug the canteen into, and that's where you drink from. And that would have been a hell of a lot better than what they went through with the rest of the PMK series. Even the PMK-3 doesn't have that. It just has the drinking system integrated into the bottom with a separate tube you plug in, which is kind of better, but it's still not as good as the Nezabudka drinking system, in my opinion. The front voice emitter is pretty typical affair. It's not that bad at quality and voice clarity. It is non-removable, unlike the earlier Soviet masks with voice membrane, so that is a bit of a disappointment. The outlet valve is a double outlet valve. Pretty typical affair, again, for Russian masks. It is unscrewable, and you have a rubber shroud on the front here. Nothing really to complain about that. I Should mention though that on later issue production example PMK2s that the parts, the plastic parts will be a bit cheaper. So if possible, try and look out for an early issue or an early production. I keep saying issue PMK2. There are even examples of PMK2s with green plastic parts like the early PMK1s, but as far as I know, there aren't any, or at least I haven't seen any PMK2s with black painted metal parts, but whatever. Here we have the inlet, I guess you could say, the port for either the bayonet filter or the 40mm Gauss adapter. Has nothing in it currently, as you can clearly see. Nothing really much to say externally. You have the pocket on the bottom of the chin for the drinking tube. You probably already saw that when I showed you the filter port. And here are the markings of the mask. Mine is a size 3 large. It is a facepiece lot of number 24. It is made in Tambov City in the third quarter of the year 2001. So again, very late production PMK2. Here is the part of the mask that everyone hates the most, even more than the drinking tube for some reason. This is the head harness. It is made entirely out of the same tacky black rubber as the mask, and it has a history of pulling on people's hair, ripping out hair. It is infamous for that, and it is bad because it's not only that, but you have to pre-adjust it. You cannot adjust it while putting on the mask. Just a big flaw in design, and not only that is, for God's sakes, a 5-point harness. Why would they choose this? Russians in gas mask design and head harnesses don't mix. They should stick to Schlem maskas. That's what they're best at, and just head harnesses and Russians don't mix. I will try and show off the inside here. If I can pull this damn thing off the head, I'll go off to the side here. Another thing I should mention is that these masks will come caked in bloom, and I recommend that you treat the mask with silicone oil. I use Trident food grade, 100% food grade silicone spray. It's water based. It does not harm the rubber. It sits on the mask, the top of the rubber, as a coating that protects it against UV rays somewhat, and dirt and all that good stuff. And it helps prevent the mask from blooming, and it keeps the rubber nice and smooth, is what I'm trying to get at here. Now, if I could just remove the mask from the head here, which is being a bit challenging, I will show you the inside. I'm not going to reverse the harness, obviously, but I will do my best to illustrate the inside here. So here is the markings on the head harness. Before I get to that, this one is a lot of 39 made in the first quarter of 2001, also by Tambov. And then here's the inside of the mask. You can see that it has a very prominent peripheral face seal that for some people even covers the eyes a little bit. And throughout the bottom there, you can see the inner drinking tube, which again is very cheap. And when I had a PMK1, this, if you ever decide to pull this off, you will instantly regret it because it will not it has no elasticity, and it will lose all of its shape, and it will not stay upright like this. It will just swing around. You can see the outlet valve, outlet valve throughout the bottom there, and that's pretty much it. You can see the filter port on the side there. And really nothing to say. I think the eye lenses are missing the spring that goes around the interior of them to hold the anti-fog inserts in, but not a big issue for me because I don't use the anti-fog inserts. I would recommend these definitely over a PMK1 due to the fact that you have more options for replacing the filter on either side, and basically it does not fog up as bad as the PMK1 because unlike the PMK1, you can actually angle the deflector up at the lenses. That is a big kicker in design for me in choosing this mask, and just one of my favorites. So that's all I pretty much have to say on the PMK2 kit, or I guess I should say MB180 mask as well. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm Duke New 3D. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns down in the comment section. I'll get to them when I can, and I will see you all later.